Hey, what's up? This is Cristian Machado, and I want to say thank you to you because you are listening to the Thunder Underground.
Welcome to episode 304 of the Thunder Underground podcast. Trent and Jason here as always. This week we've got another fun one because we've got Cristian Machado, who you all know as the original vocalist of El Nino. He also has a brand new solo album that came out a couple months ago. And of course, we talk a ton about both those things. In a really cool interview with Cristian coming up. We've also got some great music from a band out of our area. And we might talk about a couple other things. But first, we need to let you know who we're sponsored by. DEB Concerts, promoter based in Tulsa that has brought a lot of killer acts to the downtown Tulsa area at the BOK Center and the IDL Ballroom. They also booked the Roadhouse stage at Rocklahoma. The show on December 12th with Lita Ford was recently canceled, but if you like Lita Ford, no worries because April 10th, downtown Tulsa, outdoors in front of the IDL Ballroom, Queensryche will be performing with Lita Ford, Nita Strauss, and the Bullet Boys. Very cool lineup there. You can get all your ticket info, debconcerts.com. Follow them on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram as well. We, of course, will keep you up to date on any other new additions to their calendar or any other reschedules as well. So keep it here and follow DEB Concerts. Hell Hot Hot Sauce is a hot sauce company located out of the San Francisco Bay Area that makes small batch artisan hot sauces. You can check out their entire product line at their website, which is hellahothotsauce.com. You can also follow them on their socials. Both Instagram and Facebook are at hellahothotsauce. They do a lot of collaborations. They've got a couple with some metal artists, like Ghoul has a sauce called Brain Jerk, and Florida Frank from Hatebreed has a sauce called Florida Frank's Florida Heat. We've got a lot of that, and it's excellent stuff, but it'll burn your insides pretty good. So if you're interested in hot sauce, get on hellahothotsauce.com and check out what they've got. If you're on the West Coast, you can find them in a lot of stores out there as well. But get on there and tell them we sent you. Sunset Tattoo. It's a tattoo shop in Midtown Tulsa. Their tattoos are done good and proper. They're state licensed. They are mother approved. Jake and his crew have over 25 years of experience. They do excellent work. You can see photo proof of all that work on their Facebook, which is Sunset Tattoo Tulsa. Their Instagram is also at Sunset Tattoo Tulsa. If you give them a call or shoot them a message, you can set up a time to get over there, talk about what work you want to have done. If you contact them, check them out, tell them Thunder Underground sent you. And finally, Med Farm is a dispensary in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, 24683 East Highway 51. Right off the highway. Can't miss them. Huge selection, and you can check it all out at leafly.com. They've got a drive-thru. If you call ahead or text ahead, they'll have your order ready right when you show up. So that's very convenient. They also give 30% of their proceeds to build no-kill animal shelters, which is a pretty badass cause that we're very happy to talk about here. If you also mention Thunder Underground, they give you 10% off your first order. They're always running other specials as well. So if you follow them on their socials, MedFarm is PHARM on Facebook and MedFarmOK on Instagram. You won't miss any of that stuff. And a huge thank you to MedFarm. All right, let's get into some music before we get into some more talk. We're going to play a band out of Oklahoma right now. I think it's been a few weeks since we played one of our area bands.
Right.
So it's due time we get back into this. And here's a band that somehow we've managed to make it 300 plus episodes and we've never played. I do believe we've never played this band. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I don't think we have. Okay. I know that
we might have early on, but I know we've talked about them before. But
we've talked about them, and it's just one of the. It's I'm glad we're playing them now.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get into this, and we'll talk a little bit when we get back about it. But this is Follow the Buzzards, What You Want.
agree. He broadcast filming hot chip, then he blamed it all on me. Now watch us drown. Now watch us drown. Now watch us drown. Now watch us drown. You don't know what you want. You don't know what you want. You don't know what you want. So have to know what you need. You don't know what you want. You don't know what you want. You don't know what you want. So have to know what you need. You demand to be delivered, for only the righteous are free. But now that he's sworn in and risen, it's hard now that his eyes glow green. Now watch us drown. Now watch us drown. Now watch us drown. Now watch us drown. You don't know what you want. You don't know what you want. You don't know what you want. So have to know what you need. Have to know what you need. Have to know what you need.
What You Want from Follow the Buzzards, a band out of right here in Oklahoma, who we've had the fortune of seeing live more than once.
Right.
It's been a bit. I know they just played live actually this past week at Mercury Lounge.
Right.
But they're fantastic live. And as you could tell from that song, this is a great band. I know they play a lot of shows with punk bands, but as you can hear from that sound, these guys could play with all sorts of bands,
Right.
all genres. This is kind of a genre-bending type old school sound that also sounds fresh and cool. I dig
Well,
it.
and that's the thing is like, and that's kind of what I alluded to earlier. Shame on us for not having, played these guys sooner. It's just one of those things, we're doing all this shit. Next thing you know, we got this many songs and this many interviews and da-da-da-da.
We've got a long list on Google Drives of both right now.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, fuck. But this is like, this band, this song sounds like nothing you've ever heard, but it sounds like a lot of things you've ever heard at the same time.
That's a great way
It's
to
a
put it.
good roots. It's a good building blocks of rock and roll. Kind of a surf vibe. It's kind of defying, oh, look, I'm not going to be a hard rock band. I'm not going to be a punk band. We're going to do whatever the fuck we want. And, I think that's a cool lane. And, so I'm glad we finally got to play them.
Yeah. Yeah, speaking of that, their bio says rock and roll.
I mean,
They're a
come
rock
on,
band.
dude.
I mean, you got to
Right.
love it whenever people embrace that. And we've talked about that throughout the years on here. I love it whenever you can just call a band a rock band. Or if
Right.
that's, what genre is this? They're just fucking rock and roll. It's like
Yeah.
Rival Sons or Iggy Pop. It's just
Mhm.
fucking rock and roll.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. Yeah, just don't worry about what it is. Just hit the play button.
Right. These guys are on Facebook and everywhere. Follow them, like them. They're also a part of the Mugen music family with our buddy Ryan Paquette. Check these guys out and give them a follow. Give their other stuff a listen. If you're anywhere near the Oklahoma area and you see that they're playing, check them out because they're great live as well. And there you go. Follow the Buzzards. Tell them you heard about them here. Kind of like our last episode, we didn't prepare. Do we have anything to talk about?
I don't think so. I was
Yeah.
thinking about that a minute ago.
Yeah.
I'm sure there is, but after that, I just...
I'll spring one on you here. Just a
Okay.
question that we were asking ourselves basically every week back in the early days of the pandemic, which, was like 7-8 months ago.
Mhm.
When we were doing our Facebook Live thing, we'd always say, so what did you listen to this week?
Right.
I guess we haven't asked that question in a while, so just recently, the past few weeks, like, is there anything that's kind of dominated your listening?
Yeah, I've been on a big... I saw that Mopop tribute to Alice in Chains.
Okay, yeah.
So I've been on a big Alice in Chains kick, and then it sent me on a big Pearl Jam kick, which I was telling you about the other day.
Yeah.
And then
How did that go for you? when you got into the deep cuts, were you like bored, or was it?
No, it was
Did you discover some cool stuff?
I discovered a couple of cool things.
I mean, later deep cuts. We all know those first
two
two albums are fucking masterpieces.
Yeah,
and even Vitology is pretty fucking good,
See, and that's the thing. It's like, we're more hard rock metal cats. So once you get past 10, there's not a lot for us in the way of the Pearl Jam catalog. And we've talked about that over the years. But I've kind of got ear fatigue lately. I've been listening to a lot of heavy shit, a lot of stuff that I've been listening to over and over. So I was like, I want something different. And I mean, there are some cool songs. I couldn't remember a song title because you know how I go, but I mean, I found a couple cool things there. The one thing I thought was really cool is, there's more. I ran across a couple of songs, like short, loud, almost like punk songs, from Pearl Jam that I thought was cool.
Okay.
So that was cool.
Yeah.
But, and then I know that also coming up is going to be our best of. And so I'm like, well, let me kind of go back. So I listened to Testament. That new record is amazing.
Yeah.
Tried to do a couple things I maybe forgotten. So I listened to the Lucifer 3 album.
Okay.
That's fucking great. So yeah, that's just, there's something else, another album I listened to, but I can't remember.
Okay.
But, the new Hatebreed I've been listening to.
Yeah.
The Elfson cover record. And I'm just going to continue to kind of, spin my 2020 albums, just get ready for this best of.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of what's been in my ears lately.
Yeah.
What about you, sir?
Well, I did kind of the same thing over the past couple weeks that you just mentioned, like thinking of 2020 albums that, have been out a bit and I hadn't listened to in a while. And one of them I listened to a couple times was the new Night Flight Orchestra album.
Oh, that's what I listened to. Fuck.
I'm like,
you said that.
I need to figure out where this ranks because Night Flight, every time they've had an album, has always been in like our top 5.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, this will probably be in my top 5 again. Or close there too. I mean, there's some other great albums up there, but Armored Saints stuck with me.
Man, that's going to be tops, man.
Yeah.
That's going to be way up there, dude.
Yeah. But as far as like the past few weeks specifically, of course, once Power Up came out, listened to that a shitload, and that sent me down an AC/DC kick for a bit.
There you go.
But then on the opposite end of the heavier stuff, like those things, I went like a few days where I didn't listen to anything but country.
Okay.
And,
we've been there. That's good.
I always do. Whenever I listen to country, it's usually like a big spurt for like 1 or 2 days. But this one took me several days before I kind of like, okay, now I need to listen to something heavy.
Mm.
But it was the same guys over and over. It was literally nothing but the new Chris Stapleton, and then some old Chris Stapleton, and then new Orville Peck. And there's not really old Orville Peck. That was last year. Right. But it was those two guys on constant repeat with Shooter Jennings added in there, and then a little bit of, Cody Jinks and Whitey Morgan.
Uh-huh.
I didn't go to anything old, like classic country. But anyway, I can't stop fucking listening to that new Orville Peck.
Right.
It's just fantastic. But that's not.
Yeah, I need to listen to that. I'm going to put you on the spot. Have you listened to the new Sturgill Simpson yet?
Yes.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. What'd you think?
That's another one that I need to go back to because after you told me, you asked me that again a few weeks ago.
Right.
So I finally listened to it. But it was one of those things I listened to it straight through and then haven't listened to it again. But I really liked it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Sturgill Simpson. The guy comes out of left field with everything he does, and it's always great.
And it's just bluegrass covers of all of his songs.
Yeah,
bluegrass arrangements. I love it.
Yeah,
what was he? It's just crazy because what was it? A couple years ago, he was nominated for Best Country Album.
Yeah,
and now he's nominated for Best Rock Album for Sound and Fury.
Is he really?
Yeah. And he, and he made a post about it and stuff. And I mean, that's just cool. I mean, it's the Grammys. They don't know shit about fuck. But anyways, still though, it's something to hang your hat on as an artist. That's kind of cool.
And the thing is, there's very few artists that could not get in any of the, semantics about the fucking Grammys and how stupid they are with some of their categories.
Yeah.
But there's very few artists that could get nominated in both those categories, and it legitimately makes sense.
Makes sense, yeah, exactly.
I mean, Shooter Jennings could pull it off.
Yeah, yep.
I mean, I'm sure if fucking Pepper Keenan put out a country album, he could pull it off. But
man.
There's...
It's just what, it's...
I know at first when Sound of Fury came out, you weren't big on it, and I fucking loved it.
Yeah.
But I think you came a little around to it.
I had to come around to it a little bit, and that's fine. And it's just crazy because not everybody could do what he's doing. Most people, if most artists did that, people would be like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
But Sturgill, it's just like, it's open season. And he knows it, and his fans are along for the ride, which is, you wish more music fans were like that, but, but then again, I'm totally opposite of that with other bands, if AC/DC came out with a fucking, a polka jazz album, I'd be pissed off.
Right.
And so would the rest of the fucking world.
But if
Sturgill Simpson came out with a polka jazz album, turn that shit up, I want to fucking hear more of it.
Well, you weren't pissed off when Metallica put out a blues hard rock album in 1996.
See, so who knows? I don't know. We have, in just a few short minutes here, we have just found out that I know shit. I don't know anything. So, whatever.
But the best part about Sturgill is he's done all this in a relatively short span. Most people that would attempt shit like this would do it like Metallica, wait 15 years before they drop the curveball. Sturgill's like, oh, it's my second album. Fuck you. This is who I am.
Yeah, exactly. Or like Godsmack, who did 20 years of solid fucking caveman bro rock. And then just was like, hey, we want to do like a sing-songy diet rock radio record. And it fucking blew up. And people loved it. And
it's better than the shit they did before.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like, I'm not a huge Godsmack fan, but just that they did that was like, fucking hats off to you guys.
Yeah.
For saying, fuck this. I'm tired of this. Let's do something different. Oh, people might not like it. I don't care. We've been doing this for 20 years. Fuck it.
Yeah.
So those risks, I applaud when an artist does that.
And I mean, I'm going to bring up someone you hate, but Kid Rock did the same thing fairly early on, and it worked out for him.
Yeah, he did do that way early on, didn't he?
Where he brought in a few different genres and then kind of transitioned into that kind of just like middle of the road, classic rock, diet country kind of sound. And,
right.
And it's worked out for him.
Yeah.
Whether you like it or not.
Well, and now his core fan base is 51-year-old housewives that are just a little overweight. They like to wear fuzzy pink cowboy hats and drink Bud Light from an aluminum bottle.
That's right.
And they fucking think Melania Trump is the most beautiful first lady ever in the world.
Well, she is.
So,
I mean, that's not an argument. Regardless of politics.
Well, I'm just saying, no, those memes, some of the house, that's all I'm saying.
Right, I get you.
My aunt has done that, so hey, I get it.
And they're banging some dude wearing a tap-out shirt, drinking Monster Energy for breakfast.
Exactly.
He's like 31.
We know how this is going to go. Yeah. And they think the best show of all time is Big Bang Theory.
This shit just went off the rails.
We're fucking assholes. No. I don't care.
Christian Machado's listening right now going, why the fuck did I get on this podcast?
Yeah, he's like, fuck me. I'm never talking to these guys again.
Well, speaking of, whenever we're talking about stuff we were listening to, I listened to Christian's debut solo album, Hollywood Sycamore. Of course, we did preparing for this interview.
And shout out to the Life of Agony cover.
That's one of those things that I listened to 2 or 3 times, and I dug it, and then... You know how the Spotify algorithm works. Yeah. It ended up in my daily mixes. It ended up in your recently listened stuff. So then I just kept hearing it more, and I'm really digging this thing. And like you just said, he does a cover of Life of Agony, Weeds. He does a cover of Pink Floyd's Welcome to the Machine. He does a Post Malone cover. I forgot the name of the song. But to me, right off the bat, that's fucking cool. And we talk about that coming up, is that he's got 3 covers on this album, and I mean, that's about as opposite ends you can get on all 3 of those artists. Mm. So it's a really cool calling card here, and we're both massive fans of Life of Agony. So anytime someone shows some love to Life of Agony.
Yeah. I have the same feeling when you see Riley Gale in the Life of Agony shirt.
Oh, right.
When I found out he did a cover of Weeds, I was like, this is cool.
Yeah.
You know, you got to give it up to this band. Anyways, Go ahead.
Well, you remember whenever I saw Riley Gill at Exo 111, it's like in the middle of the show before it even finished, I texted you. It's like, look at the shirt this motherfucker's wearing.
Yeah, I was like, holy shit.
So anyway, let's just jump into this because here's a good interview with Cristian talking about his brand new album, Hollywood is Sycamore, and of course some other stuff he's got coming up. Most important question I have for you, I think, is do you have a tentative date for that Shade Thrower black metal album?
Well, I mean, that was kind of like just like a silly joke.
Yeah, I know.
but dude, you know, I love extreme music, man.
Yeah.
It's always been a fantasy of mine to do like either a death metal or a black metal album. So when Blabbermouth put that out there, you know, I was just like, oh man, they called me a shade thrower. And then I was like, shade thrower. Damn, that's a badass black metal name.
Yeah.
So I was just like, you know, I was just trying to like laugh it off a little bit, you know, not try to feel too bad about getting called a shade thrower.
Yeah. I looked at some of the comments on that and people were like, man, they're reaching now like 5th grade insults, you know, putting up Shade Thrower as a headline.
Yeah, well, I mean, the internet world is lovely.
Yeah, of course. Well,
I've been lucky though, man. I luckily, it wasn't even shade that I threw on it, but I know how it is. I know how press is, and it's cool to, you know, it's interesting to headline single sentences without putting what you said before it or after it, so that it may look like. But yeah, I just got to be more careful with how I say things, not so much what I say, but how I say them.
Right. Well, I guess jumping into the real stuff, your solo album's now been out a couple months. Like, how has the reception been so far from fans and everything?
Everybody loves it, man. The album did really well. At least it did better than what I expected, you know. The fans love it, and that's really the most important thing. Their perception of the album, how much it really touches them or reaches them personally, and that really was the most important thing to me. But the album did really well, and I'm very grateful that so many people did open their hearts and minds to it, considering it's not, you know, like a hard rock metal album.
Right. Well, have you noticed
the reception's been great? I'm very lucky.
Have you noticed anybody? I mean, it's probably harder to notice now since you're not out like promoting it live, but have you noticed any fans come along that weren't obviously following you because of your metal history?
Yeah.
Like maybe new fans, that kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially the one thing that I've noticed is the potential for this kind of acoustic album to grow on people that are just general music listeners is very big. A lot of people that hear it for the first time that are not rock listeners, or not really niche listeners where they have particular niches that they listen to. They just like music on a general scale, you know. People like that have really taken to the album a lot. And also, I've realized that people that are friends or family of other people that are El Nino fans that played that album for like their family or their friends, and now their family and their friends took to it for some reason, you know. I think the songs are really good, and that was really the only point in making the album, was just all I care about are, you know, great songs and telling a really genuine message. And everything beyond that, it's, you know, if things work out and fans really dig it, it's like magical. That's what magic happens, you know.
Right.
So I'm very grateful and blessed. But I've had like the one, I don't know, I think the percentages are like 98% positive, you know? So there's like 2 out of 100 people that may be like, this is not for me, you know, it's not heavy enough, or I'm only into heavy music, or whatever it may be. And things that appeal to them differently depending how they grew up or what they like or whatever, you know? So it's not, and it's something that I realized early on in making this album. I realized, okay, I'm making a particular record that's bound to make some people unhappy, you know? And I realized that very early on. I accepted it very early on.
Well, I was reading some of the critic reviews of it this past week, and it seemed like kind of the common theme on a lot of them were how evident your emotion is coming through. Like, how rewarding is that to read stuff like that, to see that like what you put out there is being received, and I'm sure the way you were wanting it to be received.
It's like I said, man, it's like magic, because it's not something you could ever figure out as a musician, you know? And I think that the more that I observe musicians that I admire or look up to, or I consider mentors, the more that I realize, you know, these are musicians that are very focused on making something as pure to them as possible. In other words, it has to really, if they're writing something and it touches them deeply, chances are there are other people out there that might feel that same way. And that's really all I was trying to do, you know, trying to get things off my chest. I had gone through a lot of different stuff with family, with leaving the band. I separated from my family. You know, I separated from the band. I was 3,000 miles away from my family, living in California alone at the time. I mean, I had to go through a lot of obstacles that were challenging. But music for me has always been, in one way or another, an avenue to not feel so trapped within myself, you know. I've never been one to go to therapy until recently because of all the challenging things I've had to go through. And music always offered me a little bit of an outlet. But I think the older I got and the more serious things are that you have to go through, and then when the challenges get really severe and it has family involved and people's lives are involved, you know, it could really affect you. So I think in that sense, through just having gone through so much, you know, the music itself that I was making became more dug into the real emotions of what I may have been going through, without necessarily saying, you know, I separated from my wife, you know, something like that, right, without getting too much in detail. You know, I tried to do it in a musical way, I guess is the right way to explain it.
Like the couple El Nino songs that you decided to rework, like how was that process? Was it easy to reimagine them in this style?
I wouldn't say easy, because the first couple of times that we tried it in El Nino, it was I don't want to use the word a disaster, but it didn't work out the way that we thought it should have. You know, we were using guitars tuned to the electric guitar tuning, and we were trying to kind of like fit an acoustic peg in an electric hole, you know, and it kind of didn't make sense. But you know, having been able to do this on my own and figure some things out on my own, and with Conrado especially, we knew that we were going to make an album with a standard tuned acoustic guitar. There wasn't going to be like this down tuning thing like we had done in El Nino. And we just tried to build from that, instead of saying, well, let's start where the electric instrumentation is at and try to make it acoustic. We said, no, let's start at acoustic and put what the instrumentation of the song is around just a standard acoustic tuning, and the voicings had to be worked out. And I was really lucky. I'm a very simple chord person. I mean, I like ninths and sevenths and flat thirds, things like this. But Conrado really was able to bring this musicality to some of the chords that was awesome to even watch. I'm still a music fan, so I'm just sometimes in awe when I work with musicians that are amazing, and I try to learn from them as much as possible, man, because those are not lessons that you're going to find on YouTube or something like that.
Right. Well, I really enjoyed your choice of covers on here, like kind of a broad spectrum between Pink Floyd, Life of Agony, and Post Malone. Like, was that like an intentional thing to try to span the gamut there?
Well, it felt like acoustic music is a very inclusive niche. It's not the type of musical niche that negates the beauty in songs and things like that. So the main thing for me was to be able to take songs from different genres and different times completely. I mean, these songs are 20 years apart from each other. And I wanted to just work them into the vibe that I had in my head for the acoustic album. The Pink Floyd song was a little bit more electro, but it needed that, or else it wouldn't. If it doesn't have that repeating synth in the background, it's not really Welcome to the Machine. But the other ones I was a little bit more free with. And I just wanted to do songs from completely different genres, completely different niches of music, and show that, the beauty of the song is really, the art of the song is really the most important thing. And learn in trying to do that myself, trying to figure out how to structure, a hip hop Post Malone song into something that fits acoustically and that fits right into the vision that I had in my head. So it was fun. And as a musician, that's kind of what I guess we all strive for, is experimentation, curiosity, and things like that. And once you're a musician, and if you hit it big and start making your money, that's where you kind of just stay where you are. Perhaps, I don't know. Some bands still keep experimenting. Like Metallica has had several kind of inventions of themselves. From the early stuff to Master of Puppets to And Justice for All to Black to Saint Anger. It's kind of like all reworked visions of what they do. And it just depends what kind of artist you are. I've always been, the kind of musician to want to keep going or keep searching, listen to lots of different music, play a lot of different music. And I realize when I'm not doing that, I'm not happy. I'm not as happy as I could be.
Is Weeds your favorite Life of Agony song, or is that just the song you thought would work best for this album?
Well, my favorite Life of Agony songs are on River Runs Red, for sure. But Weeds really has a amazing sentiment to it that I thought was extremely powerful for the lyrical content on the album, which is a lot to do with growth and accepting suffering, accepting loss of loved ones, accepting anything in the past that you might have to come to terms and realize you really weren't in control of, but you might have placed a lot of blame on yourself for a long time. And now it's time to simply take a step forward. What is the lesson you have to learn, and accept it and move forward? And Weeds was exactly that. It's a song that explains of a relationship, which I don't know that it's a love relationship. I'd have to ask Galen or Mina. But it's a relationship between two people that was once beautiful and blooming, and now it's just got these dark roots that have grown into it. And that's really what Weeds was. And the entire album, even the acoustic songs that I wrote, have a sentiment of kind of acceptance, a feeling of guilt, and then being able to overcome that whatever the challenges may be.
We've had Alan Robert on the podcast a couple times, and I asked him what he thought of that cover, and he said you did an amazing job of making it your own.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I love Life of Agony, and those guys are, such awesome people, man. I played it for Alan, and I had sent it to Alan and Mina before the record came out.
Okay.
Just because I didn't want to do a cover of theirs without them at least, giving me the green light that it's okay to do it. Haven't been their friends. I don't want to be that kind of guy to be like, hey, look what's on my album, your song. So I had sent it to them and they were like, oh man, this is great. So different. And I'm super grateful. If he likes it like that, I'm very grateful.
Yeah. Again, playing into what we were talking about earlier with the emotional aspect. I mean, you can definitely be emotional with metal, but when you're doing music like this, it's way more upfront and like it's either real or it's, in my opinion, either comes off real or it comes off just, forced.
Yeah.
And yours definitely comes off real.
Yeah.
Is that more nerve-wracking to you to do it this way, like kind of on your own outside of a band aspect?
It was. It definitely was. I the whole time I was getting good feedback from the guys in the band, like Conrado, Steve and Oscar. I was getting great feedback as far as like the demos of the songs that I was making at home. Also the label liked the demos. But in the back of my mind, there was always that musician concern of, it's as simple as people not being open-minded to it if they don't want to be. It's as simple as somebody not being in the right mood when they first hear it. There's a lot of elements that go into how will people perceive what this is, And I think that's why I kind of wanted to be honest up front with everyone. And the first thing that I had said when I left the band is I'm making an acoustic album and we're going to do something different. And hopefully that allowed some of the fans to not be in pure shock when they first heard Die Alone. But definitely there was a concern the whole time. After the record was mixed and mastered, then I kind of started listening from a different perspective and realizing, oh, wow, some of these songs really came out great. Then when it became complicated picking which one should be the single and things like that, or which one should be the second single, we knew we wanted Die Alone as the first single. But when we started to kind of tally what different songs fans liked, it was really across the board. It wasn't like fans just have like one favorite. They like all the songs and just completely across the board. It's something very odd. But maybe with acoustic music, it lends to that kind of thing. Once you put on the album, you kind of sink into it and you just vibe with it. Whereas maybe with heavy music, you're like expecting a certain thing every time and maybe listening to it differently. I don't know. But there was always a nerve-wracking thing a couple of weeks before the album. I was really stressed out, like worried. And I didn't know what was going to happen. But when the album came out and it was number 3 on iTunes Latin Top 40 albums, I wasn't expecting that. So I was like, oh my God, this it actually did something. In my mind, I was like, if it does nothing and it's good, that's all that matters. But it actually kind of wound up on some charts, and I'm very grateful for that.
Is it kind of tough to put something out like this, like your first solo album during this pandemic where you can't get out on the road and promote it that way? Or have you thought about that, like in ways to promote it now?
It's definitely challenging because there is nothing to be done. I could put on streaming, but it's not something that you could do continuously. You put on one streaming show and maybe 3 months later you could do another one. But I wish that I had the ability to go out and do shows. I understand why we can't, and I realize the reasons why, until everybody feels 100% comfortable going and packing up in a small space, it's not realistic to ask people to do that. So man, I'm just hoping that we kind of can get out of it with a little bit of sense of entertainment still. Because it's extremely challenging as an artist putting out an album and not being able to tour or play shows. There's a couple of things that I'm planning now, but it's not going to be as cool as going out there and doing a tour. You know, I'm not going to bullshit anyone. And man, ultimately we had recorded the album before the pandemic. So we had a choice of whether we hold on to it forever, and that we had already postponed it once. And ultimately we said, this is just music. You know, let's just put it out. People may want to hear this now. It's an extremely challenging time. This kind of music may actually work well. And that's what we did. We just figured, okay, yeah, let's just put it out. We won't postpone it again. And we could have postponed it and said, we'll release it 2021 or something like that. But I think the music is better in this era right now. And I think it'll grow. I think that it's an album that people like and really listen, play against. I think it's something that they'll wind up listening to forever.
Yeah, it's kind of, I mean, we've talked to several artists over the past this year, basically, that have said the same thing. Like, it's like, do we hold on to this forever, or do we just put it out now and not able to really promote it? But personally, from a fan standpoint, you know, I obviously appreciate new music during a time like this, you know, especially something like what you're doing, where it kind of relates to what people are going through too.
And I can't even imagine like the stress or the concern that bands like In This Moment had when they released their album during the pandemic. Black Veil Brides just released an album. Several bands that put out an album, you know, the Deftones just released an album basically during the pandemic. I can't even imagine the concern they had. For me, at least, it was like, oh, I'm kind of a new artist, and maybe people need new artists, kind of, you know. But for them, there's like an expectancy, and, you know, the label wants to meet the same numbers that they did the last album. So I imagine there's always concern between the label and the band of what it's going to do. And ultimately, the artist must tell the label, look, man, it's a pandemic. You can't be unrealistic. If you want to put out the album, put it out, but just be realistic in what to expect. And I think that a lot of bands went through that, through the album sales weren't what they wanted it to be. But at the end of the day, like I said, it's just music, and people might need to listen to it.
Yeah.
It's really not more complicated than that. It's as easy as saying, it's just music. If you put it out, either people will like it or not.
Right. Well, speaking of that, kind of like leading up to putting this album out, was it kind of, since you had it done, was it one of those things where it was like hard to hold on to? Like, I want to get this out, like you've had this ready and you want the world to hear it?
There was, but there was also concern still. Like, are people going to like it? You know, and deep in the back of my head, a couple of times, of course, I even thought, should it even come out? You know, because I mean, I didn't know. I really had no idea. You know, I could judge things personally and, you know, judge them just my own conclusions, but I can't really guess what other people might conclude. All I could do is just hope that they like it. And there was definitely concern, and, you know, holding on to it kind of also became like, man, put it out, because I don't know if people are going to like it or not.
Yeah.
It was almost like, I got to know if people are going to like it or not.
Right. Well, there's been some talk recently about this project with you ex-El Nino guys coming out, like sometime next year. Like, once you guys have a label and all that stuff, is this something you're looking at as being a kind of like a full-time project, or are you still going to like split time between that and solo music and whatever else you've got going on?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that anything I do, I try to take serious. I don't like, you know, half-assing some things. Even when I learn new shit, I try to go all the way, learn as much as possible. But it's definitely something I want to take serious. The songs are really, really, really good. very impressive songs. So it might do well. It might be something that people want to put in their listening, in their metal listening playlist and stuff like that. But then again, I don't know. I can't really predict what's going to happen. I mean, I know that I'm supposed to start playing shows for solo acoustic stuff, I guess, March of next year. Sorry, April of next year. And there's certainly plenty of time in a year to be able to, balance two projects that are completely different from each other. And that's the one thing that I could say. I'm proud that if I am in a situation where I'm having two projects like this, neither of them are going to compete with each other, because it really is two completely different genres of music. Some fans that have an open mind and an open ear to just great music in any genre would take to some of it. There'll be like a gray area where the fans might kind of meet in the middle and like both of the projects. But there's definitely enough time in a year where I could balance it out. And I'd love to be able to do two projects and make double the money.
Right.
I mean, I'm getting old, man. I got to start, working on a savings account, or else that's not going to grow the way it needs to.
Right. Well, kind of on a non-music subject, throughout this pandemic, have you spent, when you're not, working on the new stuff, have you spent your personal time during the pandemic?
Well, it's been extremely challenging. I wish I would have gotten more time with my daughter than what I was able to get. I had to spend time in court, requesting the court to force more time because of parenting disagreement situations and things like that. But I don't know, the thing that I've done the most is work on anything that is creative. I've written some new songs. I've taken up doing legal assistance after having gone through the court system, so in depth. I've taken on doing some legal assistance for parents that really need the help, because I've realized that we are in a system where, two parents separating and having a kid in the middle is an extremely hard situation to maneuver. And I'd like to say I did a great job leaving my emotions out of it and just trying to have a clean separation. But sometimes people's emotions do get caught up in it, whether, they're upset at you or whatever the reason may be. So I think a lot of people need to help out there right now, man. And, there's so many families going through separations after 2020, and the courts are closed. They have no help from anyone in the court system. And, I feel for anybody that really is just looking to have a mature civil separation. And that's why the court system is there, to help people that need civility and some kind of outside the box perspective on what is the best for the child and things like that. So I've taken on doing things like that. I've also worked on my HTML and Java coding skills more. Also worked on my video editing prowess a little bit more. I'm trying to learn as much as possible, I'm trying to take as much knowledge to the grave as I can, man. Even if I don't use it and I just learn, and maybe it helps me, maybe it helps someone else along the way, that's really all that matters.
Right.
So I've been just taking on small little projects that are mostly growth-based, thinking, can I be good at this? Can I be good at that? And seeing what kind of draws my attention the most. But mostly creative things, but also that other legal aspect where it came to be just out of the situation that I went through and realizing that people need the help.
Kind of playing it back into music based off of the stuff you've dealt with personally this year. Like, what have you listened to throughout the year kind of to get through that kind of stuff? I mean, I know you mentioned a few new albums a minute ago, but is there anything specific that you've been digging this year?
Yeah, let's see. I'm still listening to the After the Burial album that came out a couple of years ago a lot. The Run the Jewels album was really good. I don't know if you listen to hip hop, but the Run the Jewels album came out kind of in the middle of the pandemic. That kind of allowed a little bit of, of this like good urban hip hop vibe. That gave me a good month of listening to it and having fun. Another album that I thought that came out that was good is the Ghost Main album that just came out, which is kind of like 9 Inch Nails blended with hip hop, which is super interesting. The Seven Dust album is really good. The Deftones album I dig, but I'm more like the old school Deftones fan. I'm still stuck in like Around the Fur and the White Pony.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten to really check. I got to check out a couple of songs of the Corey Taylor album, but I haven't gotten full in depth into it yet. I was almost like expecting more acoustic stuff on it because he's, usually does acoustic shows and stuff like that. But he did the rock thing, which I guess is interesting. Is probably where his vibe is at right now. He probably just wants to rock out. I enjoyed the Non-Point acoustic thing that they had released recently, which I thought was really, really good. And their live stream show was really, really good as well. What else? Let's see. Listening to the Jesus Piece. I don't know if you've heard of them. They're like a hardcore band, but they're really, really fucking good. They're like Hatebreed squared with a little bit more slam metal. They're really fucking good. But their album is really, really good. Anybody who likes hardcore heavy music, you got to check out Jesus Piece. And a couple other things. I can't, there's some things that have come out that I have on my, album playlist that every time it comes out, I'm like, shit, this is so badass. Good music is coming out. It's just different. I think that artists are at a time of experimentation right now. I don't know where it'll lead, but it feels like all artists are on some kind of experimentation thing.
Yeah.
Whether it's hip hop artists or metal bands. Yeah, I mean, it's a good time for music, but it's a bad time for selling albums. That's all it is.
Right. Yeah, that's what I've been thinking. Maybe 2021 and 2022, you're going to hear an explosion of kind of new ideas because so many people have this time this year where they don't have anything else to do but think about that kind of stuff,
Well, I heard the other day, I heard Finn McKenty, he was saying, man, YouTube plays are down across the board the last couple of months. And in my head, I'm wondering, it's got to be because people are glued to this election shit. It has to be.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, what's going on with the election? What's going on with the election? So people's, entertainment that they're taking in, it's probably mostly to do with like news and shit like that. But we'll probably get back to normal entertainment, people wanting to watch movies and other things like that, or regular YouTube content.
Cool, man. Well, I appreciate you taking the time with me today.
Hey, man, it was a pleasure hanging out with you, brother.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me on.
There you go, Cristian Machado, former lead vocalist of Il Nino. A huge thank you to Jeff from Chesky Records for hooking that one up. And, of course, a massive thank you to Cristian there for talking about everything he's got going on. As you heard there, he's also got some new metal coming next year with him and the two other members of Il Nino that all left the band about a year and a half ago. If you're a fan of Il Nino at any point in time, I'm sure that's something you want to check out. And I thought it was cool to hear that the assumption for most people would be like, well, it's just going to sound like El Nino because it's those guys. But he said that they're purposely making this sound a little bit different. Because,
of course,
I guess if you want to hear El Nino, there's still a version out there.
Right.
And I'm not going to slag it at all. I haven't heard it, but our buddy Jess from Sons of Texas is a part of that as well. So, and that's a band we've had on this podcast now 3 times between Jess and John.
God damn it, Trent.
I said Jeff a minute ago, so it's acceptable. From Chesky Records. But yeah, so check out Cristian's brand new album, Hollywoody Sycamore, that just came out here a couple months ago. And yeah, if this is your first time listening, besides Cristian and the guys from Sons of Texas, we've got 300 plus episodes with where to begin. We've had on just this past week, we had on Michael from Dark Tranquility. Last week we had on John Karabi. Recently we had on Paige Hamilton of Helmet. Michael Spreitzer of Devil Driver. We had a big Eddie Van Halen tribute episode here last month with guys from Tesla, Slaughter, the guys I just mentioned, Helmet, Devil Driver, Jim Wilson of Motor Sister, Eddie Valise of King, Robin McCauley. All those guys I just mentioned have been on here on their own episodes as well. We've also had on guys from Crowbar, Super Joint, Corrosion Conformity, Prong, Typo Negative, Life of Agony, who we talked about there in that interview. Alan Roberts been on here twice, and one of them was just, about a month ago.
Right.
So, check all those out, and a ton of other great ones throughout the years. TheThunderground.com. You can listen to everything there. You can also find all our socials there, wherever you listen. Subscribe, like, share. Any of the socials do the same thing. Just liking a post helps us out in all the algorithms of all these damn social medias.
Exactly.
YouTube is another one. At The Thunder Underground. If you subscribe there, we've got a lot of videos that are separate from this podcast. We've had recent reviews of albums and live performances from Metallica, Alter Bridge, Napalm Death, Dark Tranquility, Hatebreed, Saul, Havoc. Just dig back through there, check all those out. I think that covers it for another week. Coming up here next week, I believe we're going to get a little melodic and glam on you.
Okay.
We're going to have some Reb Beach up in here.
That's a good one.
Yeah, one of my favorite guitarists of all time. Guitarist, of course, of Winger. And he's also been a part of Whitesnake now for about a decade. Then we've got Matthew Nelson, one half of Nelson, which is very cool. So looking forward to getting both those out. And then coming up after that, we'll get heavy again for you. If you're fans of the heaviness, we've got Frederick Leclerc of Creator, formerly of Dragon Force. We've got Wayne Lozenak of Hatebreed. We've got, what else do we got coming? We've also got Austin Moe, great new blues rock artist. Eric the Trainer, celebrity fitness trainer, who has a new band called Main Monster. We've got our buddy Eric Bass coming up as well. And I know there's a couple other things in there that I forgot to look at the list. And then here, later this month, probably the last episode of the year will be, like we talked about before that interview, Best of 2020, where you'll be hearing about our favorite albums of one of our least favorite years. So,
right.
At least the music was good.
Yeah.
Once again, a huge thank you to Jeff from Chesky Records, Hell Hot Hot Sauce, DEB Concerts, Sunset Tattoo, and Med Farm. And until next time.
Thunder Underground, y'all.